Welcome to Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters where we bring out the professionals, experience, and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. And we believe all investments have merit depending on you, your objectives, and your goals, and time and place. Now, my name is Seth Crustman, and I'm joined here once again with John Ryder and Ben Brayshaw. We're all planners and partners with Brayshaw Financial Group. How are you guys today?
Good morning.
Good morning,
doing well.
Seth. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Is it still morning?
It's still morning and it's still raining.
Is it still summer there too?
It is.
It's been a good summer, though. I can't complain about the summer. It's been a good one. You know, the grass is green, which is good, which means we've gotten plenty of water, which I'm okay with. Seeing I don't have a sprinkler system installed, so my sprinkler system is dragging hoses around my big old yard.
Hey, it's effective.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm good.
Well, I woke up to 50 degrees today, sun shining, but that's summer here, wearing shorts, and, a beautiful view of Mount St. Helens and Mount Hood still on the horizon.
Nice.
Yeah, we're glad you're listening to Money on Tap, and if you're looking to sit down with an advisor and start making some of the right steps towards your financial goals, we welcome the opportunity to do that with you, and you can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. You can also find us at www.yourmoneyontap.com or Facebook, several of the podcast venues out there. If you're streaming us today, thanks for listening. And we're going to spend some time talking about what might keep you up at night when it comes to your money. And there are a lot of people out there who are very concerned about how money, or perhaps how lack of money, will affect their future. We're going to talk about your fears, your financial fears, and facing those fears today, and what you could do or should be doing in light of your financial fears.
You know, Seth, it was FDR who coined the phrase, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And he used this line in his first inaugural address way back in 1933. Not that I was alive for that. Some people might think that. But it's interesting. Franklin D. Roosevelt had campaigned against Herbert Hoover in the 1932 presidential election by saying as little as possible about what he might do if elected. Kind of sounds like maybe current times here. Through even the closest working relationships, none of the president's-elect's most intimate associates felt they knew him well, with the exception perhaps of his wife Eleanor. The affable, witty Roosevelt used his great personal charm to keep most people at distance. In campaign speeches, in fact, he favored a buoyant, optimistic, gently paternal tone spiced with humor. But his inaugural address took on an unusually solemn religious quality, and for good reason. By 1933, think about what was going on in history around then, the Depression had reached its depth. Roosevelt's first inaugural address outlined in broad terms how he hoped to govern and reminded Americans that the nation's common difficulties concerned only material things. So here's a quote here from FDR in his inaugural address. He says, "This great nation will endure as it has endured, will revive and will prosper. So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance. In every dark hour of our national life, a leadership of frankness and vigor has met with that understanding and support of the people themselves, which is essential to victory. I am convinced that you will again give that support to leadership in these critical days."
You know, when you hear those words, I mean, they're almost timeless. I mean, those are the same kind of concerns, and we people are living in fear from, whether it's ISIS or some other, military event, or fear, or financial, this, that, the other thing. But the truth is that when you actually apply that thinking to, today, I mean, if he was out there speaking today, I'd be like, he's speaking right to me.
Right.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, no doubt. There are a lot of people out there with a lot of concerns when it comes to their own money, and we're going to get into some of those fears later on in today's show. So, don't go away. Not only will we be talking about those fears, but we'll also be talking about how to face those fears and to change the mindset that you may have from fear to confidence. And that is the challenge for a lot of us. And in the Bible, it does talk about how God gave us a lot of things, but what he did not give us is a spirit of fear. And in 2 Timothy 1:7, Timothy writes, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and of self-discipline."
Seth, I think you're right. The Bible has a lot of advice when it comes to money and our relationship with it. In fact, in the Bible, there are many references to money and how we handle it, really more references about that than any other subject. So there certainly is not anything inherently wrong with money, but the thing that may be wrong with it may be the way that we treat it. And many times it's easy to let money take too much importance in our lives. And sometimes we can treat money, or perhaps maybe even the things that money buys, as a god in our lives. And so that's something that good for us to all think about. What's interesting? We've been working on a program. Ben's been spending a lot of time with it, on a program that we're kind of rolling out to local churches here. It really talks about really handling money responsibly. And Ben, I thought maybe you could share a little bit about kind of how what we're doing in this vein. I know you're kind of centering it off of the parable of the talents, and really talking about using money responsibly and how we do that in our lives.
Yeah, I mean, it's a project heavily underway. I mean, we're in the design building phase of it. But essentially, I mean, the conversation around, Matthew 25 is that, there's 3 servants involved, and the master gives the first servant 1 bag of gold, and then the second servant gets 2 bags of gold, and then the third gets 5. And when the master comes back, the second 2 servants, the 2 bags and the 5 bags, they both actually doubled the number of bags they brought back to the servant, to the master. So, 2 bags became 4 and 5 bags became 10. The first servant only returned the 1 bag because he buried it in the sand. And a lot of people know this story. It's very, very common. What's interesting about it is the master gave to each servant what he knew he could handle and what he could do the very best with, because they both doubled it. So people would say, well, why wouldn't he just give, you break out the bags? Why would you not just give 4 and 4 to the best 2? And I think that's where we have the opportunity to grow and change, but he gives within our abilities. The most important part about this is that stewardship inside of this is not just breaking even. See, there's a lot of people out there, and I appreciate what Dave Ramsey talks about getting out of debt and helping people really get there. But the truth is once you're out of debt, and I don't want to depress people who are really fighting to get out of debt, because I am proud of you for doing that and working on that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get out of debt, just bringing back that 1 bag, that stewardship, bringing back that 1 bag, that's not stewardship yet. Stewardship is growing from that point and actually making money. God's calling us to do better with what he's given to us, whether it's money, whether it's personal or spiritual gifts or anything like that, whether it's we have the ability to work with youth and or work with adults or be in ministry or be in a specific career or role. You're supposed to do the very best you can and give back in that area.
And there's, I think especially in Christian circles, a lot of times there's this idea or concept that money is evil. Sometimes we've heard that phrase where people are talking and they'll say, well, money is the root of all evil, so I want to make sure I avoid that. I'll make sure to give and all this. And I don't think that the Bible, I know the Bible doesn't talk about that. It talks about the love of money. And so if you have a great love for it and the things that it buys and the comfort it affords you, well, there's probably where we're having some of the problems when it comes to money. So we're looking forward in this show talking a little bit more about some of the things that make people nervous, some of the things that keep people up at night. So we're going to talk a lot about financial fears, but before we do that, let's talk about some fears in general, just for a little bit of fun. There's a article out there, and the name of the article is "What Do Americans Fear Most?" Chapman University is a university that does some surveys, and they've done 3 in a row, and they've come out with a list. So let's talk about that survey just a little bit and see if some of you out there in our listening audience can relate. So let me just give you the background on this. Chapman University recently completed its 3rd annual Chapman University Survey of American Fears. This is in 2016. The survey asked respondents about 65 fears across a broad range of categories, including fears about government, crime, environment. We're going to hit them all here. Future, technology, health, natural disasters, spiders, as well as fears of public speaking.
That's legitimate.
Ghosts.
That's completely legitimate.
Yeah,
Yep.
and
That's
I can
legitimate.
get that.
What about fears of John?
Fears of John too is probably one is right up there, and other personal anxieties. I think that could be categorized there. In addition to the set of fears examined in previous waves, the survey team took a closer look at two related phenomena: Americans' beliefs in conspiracy theories. There's Ben, and fear of Muslims, sometimes referred to as Islamophobia. So in its third year, the annual Chapman University Survey of American Fears included more than 1,500 adult participants from across the nation, all walks of life. The 2016 survey data is organized into 6 basic categories: personal fears, conspiracy theories, terrorism, natural disasters, paranormal fears, and fear of Muslims. The 2016 survey shows that the top 10 things Americans fear the most are what, Seth? What's number 1, Seth?
Corruption of government officials.
That's ridiculous.
Why in the world would people be upset about
Who
that?
possibly thinks our government's corrupt?
That never happens. Not possible.
Yeah,
Not
there's
possible.
absolutely no corruption in government. I just can't understand why people will be concerned about that. Hey, the thing is, same fear as 2015. So
Those people are paranoid.
That's
Totally
right.
paranoid.
Okay, so another fear that Americans have, and this is probably, I don't know, it seems like there's probably some sense behind this, but the second most important fear, or things that Americans fear most, would be terrorist attacks. I don't know. It seems like there's probably some good logic for people to be concerned about those kind of things.
Yeah, that's legitimate. I like
how
otherwise
back
we
and
don't
forth.
have. Yeah, otherwise we don't have we
was
don't have
not
lines at the airport.
No,
Everybody just walks on the
fine.
planes
Oh,
just
man.
fine.
Just doing
Yeah.
some flying this past weekend, and let me tell you, terrorist attacks are real, and the belief in them are real. Because boy, getting through those security lines, what a nightmare! What a nightmare!
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
corruption of government officials, number 1. Terrorist attacks, number 2. Okay, now this is what we're going to hone in on a little bit later, and that is not having enough money for the future, and that's certainly a legitimate concern. We see people with those concerns
Sure.
every single day. So.
Sure.
But here's what I find interesting, Seth. Number 4, being a victim of terror. So
Yeah,
we
that's
had
different
terrorist
than
attacks,
terrorist
number 2.
attacks.
Yeah,
How's I okay.
Ben.
I guess I kind of put them all in
I
that
guess
category.
I did too. I think they should have too. Not that it's my job to advise Chapman
No, I can
University.
see.
how they
I
do
can
the
see
surveys.
there's. A,
It is my job to advise them.
no, I can see. I can see there being a difference in this. I mean, think
Okay.
about it. You don't want to be. You don't want to see your loved ones potentially in a terrorist attack. I mean, I had a cousin who had an office in the Twin Towers,
Oh, wow.
and he
Yeah.
wasn't even in that tower that day. He was actually working at the Jersey City office, and just randomly too, of course, because he was
Wow.
actually supposed to be there. So I think the fear of a terrorist attack because of family members and people around you could be very real. And then I think being a victim of that terror, being one of those people involved in 9/11 is a whole nother fear.
Yeah, so one is more
Yeah,
maybe
you're
not
probably
selfish
right.
fear for others,
Right.
but
Yeah.
the other one is more, hey, this could happen to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and even more close to home for you guys was the Boston Marathon, right?
Yeah.
sure.
And the yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even know. Like, you go to a sporting event or anything at this point, you're kind of like, is it really worth it? I mean, there's always that question mark.
Yeah, they're really when you go into the Celtics game or you're going, they're going through your bag
Red
and pulling
Sox
everything
or-
out. And, that's right.
Yeah, it's
Right.
ridiculous.
So Ben, why don't you cover number 5? This is something that I think you can identify with.
Government restrictions on firearms and ammunition.
That used to be a lot worse, didn't it? I mean, it seems like things are maybe not so tight anymore.
Well, I think New Hampshire, who got rid of their concealed carry permit. So I mean, there's anyone can conceal carry in New Hampshire now.
Yeah, I finally go through all the
Wait.
effort to get my concealed carry,
Does-
and then 6
does that
months later, oh, you don't even need one.
Well, does that include felons? Like just basically anybody that can
Oh,
get a gun
I
can
don't-
carry a gun?
No, I mean, if you got pulled over and you not supposed to have a gun, then that would be a problem.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm relieved now.
So
Okay, and then I can certainly understand the next one here. People I love dying. So worrying about people.
Yeah.
And think about that. We have many people. We have many clients. Actually, husband and wife, they're the only ones there, and obviously they're concerned about what happens to me if my loved one passes away. That's certainly a valid concern.
We talk about that all the time with people. It's not so much. It's not about the unhealthy spouse. It's about how and what condition you leave the healthy remaining spouse.
Yeah. I remember hearing a pastor one day talking. Actually, there's a guy named Mark Driscoll out of Seattle, and he was talking about how he really prays every day that he will be the one that lives longer than his wife because he wants to be the one that takes care of her all the way up until the end date. I thought that was a pretty unselfish way to look at things,
Or it could be the other way around.
Or it could be the other way around. No, I would not cast that motive on him, but yes, that could be the other way around.
Poor guy. Poor wife.
Okay, so another concern that a lot of people have, and we see this a lot too.
This is
a lot of people with concerns about this.
Yeah.
I'm surprised this isn't higher on the list.
Yeah, you would think it would be because, maybe some things trigger that, though. Trigger this. So the concern that we're talking about here is economic or financial collapse, which could be caused by maybe terrorist attacks, that type of thing. But certainly there are people out there that have big, huge concerns. People that have been through bad times before. We were talking about the Great Depression era early in the show with FDR's inaugural address. But that certainly people get concerned about that. I even remember like my wife's grandparents being so concerned, and you guys probably have memories of grandparents too, maybe great grandparents that were so concerned, even though they had plenty of money, even though they had plenty of it, they were very concerned about spending anything because they remember those days when they didn't have that, and they remember going through tough times.
Yeah.
So identity theft is what comes up next after that, and I'm a little surprised that this one made the list as well. I mean, I don't come across a lot of people that really have a huge fear in this arena. I mean, there seems to be ways that this kind of works itself out, and companies out there supporting, tagging the identity theft or possible, theft of identity. I mean, I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think sometimes we see, and Ben, just recently we had some clients who did not want to sign up for any kind of online anything at all. They want everything paper, and I can understand that. But they were, they're elderly folks, and they just did not have any trust in the system there. And I can certainly understand that. They don't want to have their numbers taken. They've read enough about it or see it on TV. And I was talking to a client recently who would have someone calling her up on the phone as if it was their grandmother. They'd call up and say, "Hey, Grandma," and she's like, "Well, who is this?" "This is your grandson." Trying to get some information out of them, or actually trying to get money is basically what it boiled down to. Is like, "I need some money. Can you send it to me?" And thankfully she was rational, didn't have any problems regarding that. But that can be scary. People not trying to take money and trying to maybe even figure out how to steal their identity.
So I have a client who's an attorney who worked he worked in the identity theft area.
Oh, interesting.
And so he told me one time, he said, the number one way people steal, your identity is driving by your mailbox and picking up your outgoing mail.
Yeah, you would think that would happen more often. Maybe it does.
Well, you think about it, right? You're mailing out a bill.
Yeah, you have your flag up.
You have your flag up.
Old-fashioned system, right?
Right. You get your flag up. You got your bill with your account number. You've got a check in there with your signature, your account number, and your routing number.
Ben, I'm never going to leave it in my post office again. You're making it.
So seriously, I don't put it. Yeah, I don't do it.
Yeah,
I don't do it at all.
Yeah. It's interesting that an online, like a electronic, can actually be a safer way of transitioning your money to your accounts and covering yourself. So people, I love becoming seriously ill, and I think that's another one that we all deal with on a very regular basis. And I'll just jump into the last one here because I wanted to say something in summary here is the Affordable Care Act of Obamacare. We could probably actually have a conversation around that as well. But I thought it was interesting. Out of those 10, there was 5 of these that I have highlighted that we deal with every day with our clients. And I just thought that was really amazing. And in the factors of fear, just general, broad, cast a net out there of what do Americans fear most, 5 of them have happened to kind of warehouse in our practices.
That's a great point, Seth. I mean, that's really where, when you think about what people are dealing with and the fears that they face, I mean, we are a big partner inside those fears. I mean, that is a big issue that, we have to take the reins on when you're thinking about it.
Christopher Bader, who is the PhD professor of sociology at Chapman, who ran the survey, he led the team effort. He said, the 2016 survey data shows us the top fears have shifted from last year's, which were heavily based in economic and big brother type issues, to include more health and financial fears this year. People often fear what they cannot control, continued Dr. Bader, and we find continued evidence of that in our top fears. One of the things that the survey highlighted was belief in conspiracy theories. And this is a new one. It says beliefs in conspiracy theories were a new element to the 2016 survey, included questions asking about levels of belief in 9 different popular conspiracies. Conspiracy theories such as JFK assassination, Barack Obama's birth certificate. That was a big one. Remember that? Alien encounters, the moon landing, 9/11 attacks, and the AIDS virus and more. But also, what they learned is that more than half of all Americans believe that the government is concealing information about the 9/11 attacks, as well as the assassination of JFK. Another 40% believe the government is hiding information about extraterrestrials and global warming. 1/3 believe that there are conspiracies surrounding Obama's birth certificate and the origin of the AIDS virus. Nearly 1/4 of Americans also believe there's something suspicious about the death of Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. Remember that when he passed away? Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, I remember that, but I really don't remember anything about it that was suspicious. So you're listening to Money on, we'll get to that though. You're listening to Money on Tap, and we're glad you're having a listen today. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Ben Brayshaw looks at building pensions and considering what you need to create freedom within your income on this Cliff Notes edition of Money on Tap.
We talked last week about putting all these little pieces to this larger puzzle together, right? So we talked about how to invest for taxes, how to do all these things and so forth, and how we have $19 trillion in debt as a nation, which is going to raise our taxes. We have these unfunded state pensions. Where are they going to fund them from? Oh, so more state taxes. So that's even more. So if you're talking about how you're going to build your pension or building your own pension, looking at how to build tax-free pensions is going to be highly important, or tax advantageous pensions or reduced taxable distributions. Somehow, some way, you're going to need to create the ability to create freedom inside your income.
The looming tax issues, because of what you just laid out, starts to rival inflation as one of the predators as you start looking forward.
Right. So, we're always talking to people like, you've got taxes and inflation to worry about. There's taxes going up, and they say, well, I don't know. Well, are they going down? No one thinks they're going down. So when you put it in that perspective, people are like, yeah, they're going up. I don't think people understand how they're going up, why they're going up, and in the different areas that they're going up. People think, oh, well, this is what I pay in income tax, or this is what I pay in that. But we got state issues. We got federal issues. We got Social Security failing its funding. We've got states failing their funding. We've got a $19 trillion debt. How are we investing to deal with that?
And the vanguard of that is cities and towns that are failing.
Sure, municipal.
Yeah. So, and that's a big, huge problem. And I think if you're not evaluating that, then you take, like you said, Lou, the inflationary issue. If you can just get rid of the tax side of this and reduce your taxable distributions, then all you have to worry about is inflation. You have one unknown, not 2 or 3 or 4. Right. So that's important, and more so. And that's why when people come through the door, we say, we want to see your tax return. That is the first thing I want to see. I want to see how their life is being financially created, because if you can't, it's a sift. When we're kids playing on the beach, you take that sift and you shake it around and you get some rocks that are left over there.
Yeah.
That's what a tax return is. It's a sift that decides how much money you get to go through their sift. And that's how much you get to keep. So it's not how much money you make, it's how much you get to keep.
Find out more about three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning with Ben Brayshaw, Seth Crossman, and John Ryder on their weekly radio program, Money on Tap.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in three-dimensional investing. Now, we are all partners and planners with Brayshaw Financial Group. You can find us at yourmoneyontap.com. Also, Facebook is a great way. We appreciate all the likes, all the listens. If you're streaming by podcast, thank you. We appreciate the downloads there. And, one of the things we always love to reach out to with our listeners is ideas. that are concerns or topics or are ways that you or we can communicate with you without you, coming into the office here and spending time with us. We can go ahead and talk about some of those ideas that you have out there, things that you want to have covered. So we appreciate that feedback. And if you do reach out to us and we wind up using your idea, your topic for a show, well, we have something special to give you as well, whether that be a hat or a T-shirt. We've got some great designs that we're putting out.
Good looking T-shirt.
If you haven't seen the logo, you want to. You really do. It's really it looks good. I get a lot of compliments on that all the time. And we are talking about fear today, and it is a driver. It's there. It's ever present in all of our lives. We deal with it all the time, but there are some significant fears that we as Americans have, and 5 out of the top 10 happen to be part of what we deal with on a daily basis at Brayshaw Financial Group in our planning, in our practice, and with our clientele, just working through some of those financial fears. They come up all the time. And but there's something that we haven't gotten to yet that I thought was really interesting, and we were getting to some of the demographics where we were talking about the nearly 1/4 of Americans also believe that there's something suspicious about the Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia.
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
Yeah.
And I don't remember anything about that.
Okay, so the guy was at a retreat in Colorado, I think it was, somewhere out near you, Seth, out in the mid. Well, you're further out there, but no.
Yeah, 1,500 miles, give or take. That's fine.
And so he went to bed that night, and he didn't wake up in the morning. But there is talk about how he passed away, and I guess they said he passed away of natural causes. But I think there was or was not an autopsy done. I think there was, but there's a lot of concerns because there's a couple of pillows around, and was it possible that he was suffocated, or this is a conservative Supreme Court justice, so there's a lot of people up in arms.
So there were pillows in a bed where he was sleeping. That right there,
I guess more than
suspicious.
one. Usually he had one, and I guess there's more than one, and that was
that was not
that
normal.
was suspect. Yeah. So I'm glad we can all laugh about it now, Seth. That's all I can say. So this guy, Dr. Bader, he's interesting. He says, we found clear evidence that the United States is a strong conspiratorial society. We see a degree of paranoia in the responses. Most indicative is nearly 1/3 of respondents believe the government is concealing information about the North Dakota crash, a theory we asked about. To our knowledge, we made up, Dr. Bader continued. So they made something up. And then 1/3 of people out there. So how about
like,
North Dakota crash out there? Oh, yeah. I think something's going on there for sure.
Sounds like it. So here's one of the things I thought was really, like, if you're looking to try to maybe change your perspective, which is one of the things we try to do, I think, in behavioral finance, which we work through a lot, is how do we view whatever the circumstances are, maybe a little differently, and what can we do about maybe some of these fears? So demographics gathered in this survey said that the most likely person to believe in a conspiracy theory is, first of all, Republican who's employed but has a lower level of income and education, and he or she is likely to be Catholic or Christian denomination, but attend religious services infrequently. So I want to reverse engineer this and say, get to church more often. Switch your affiliation, whatever that might be, denomination, and then maybe get back into school or at least become a Democrat. Does that sound right?
It does.
Will that take care of it?
Nicely done. Well, here's what he says. He says, conspiracy theorists tend to be more pessimistic about the near future, fearful of government, less trusting of other people in their lives, and more likely to engage in actions due to their fears, such as purchasing a gun, added Dr. Bader. I don't know. I think there's – who is behind this Chapman University? I'd like to do a little research on that. What's going on with Chapman University?
Yeah,
Who's on
how
the
about that Chapman?
there?
They didn't throw that one out there,
Sounds
did
like
they?
a
They're like
Democratic left-leading institution. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I sound a little paranoid. I don't know. So, in talking about terrorism attacks too, there's a lot of people out there that obviously fear those because of things that we see going on every day. And the headlines that we see, for instance, remember the attack in Orlando, San Bernardino. So obviously with more headlines going on, there's more of us that will be concerned about those types of things in the future. So,
well, I don't feel safer in this country because of all the stuff they put together. Like when I go to the airport, I don't necessarily feel safer because they can screen my bags and, look for a Swiss Army knife that has a tweezer and a toothpick in it.
Right.
Did they confiscate that from you as well when you were going through security?
Funny story. I didn't realize it, but my briefcase had a knife in it. It was like probably a 5-inch blade or 4-inch blade, like a regular larger pocket knife. And it must have fallen to the bottom of my briefcase. I don't know if I had it somewhere or whatever and just tossed it in there, but it had fallen to the bottom and it had turned sideways. And so I think when I was sending my luggage through, it was laying flat on the bottom of my briefcase. So when I turned my briefcase on its side and it went through, I traveled for 2 years. And I never found it.
Oh, wow.
Never found it. I mean, crazy stuff. When I was a kid, I was on a missions trip in Guatemala.
Yeah.
And flying back, I had bought this machete. Okay. I was a kid. I was like 15, 16 years old.
At the airport?
No, I bought it, off the street. It was beautiful engraved, leather case.
True confessions, Ben Brayshaw.
But the size of the blade was 2.5 or 3 feet long. I mean, this is like a real deal machete, solid steel. I mean, this thing was like
yeah, it's a nice solid piece. Yeah.
I brought this on the plane as a carry-on.
No problem.
I kid you not.
You're cutting your sandwich with it on board.
Over a quarter of a century ago, I was bringing a 3-foot bladed machete. I threw it in a hockey bag and shoved it in the upper compartment. No big deal. No one asked.
Wow.
Yeah. So now I can't bring a Swiss Army knife on there.
So speaking about security things, so I have this
John. Actually, I'm sorry. I actually have the machete.
Oh, the machete is hanging right there in the studio. Yes.
Yeah.
Check that out. I guess you were telling the truth. Check that out.
I forgot all about that. Look at that thing.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. Okay, so my
I think
son
we're
was
scaring the listeners right now.
my son was on a trip to DC for his senior trip, and he's going on the trip, and he has a friend with him who's actually going to be his roommate in college, and his roommate, he's kind of a hunter, fisherman guy, and so he brought a couple of knives with him on the senior trip. Not quite sure why he did that, but anyway, so he has these in his backpack, and of course we're in DC. Could there be a place where you would not bring knives to? So he's at DC. He's wanting to go see the Washington Monument. Lines up, doesn't realize that he has this large hunting knife in his backpack. So the principal had to sit outside with him that day and not go in to see the Washington Monument because of that. And I hate to say it, but I think it happened again somewhere else there. So note to self, if you're going to DC and touring the buildings there, leave all your weapons at home.
Mm-hmm. Because they don't like this. They're like not really down with Crocodile Dundee. Like that's a knife.
Crocodile Dundee. That's funny.
So they end down under. Yeah. So anyway, so lots of things regarding terrorism and that kind of thing. So it's funny because on this list, the thing that I always heard was the number one fear that people have was the fear of public speaking, and I don't know why it didn't show up at all on this, but isn't that or fear of drowning? Those things. Right. There's a lot of people out there with the fear of drowning. People out there. In fact, I was just listening to a podcast recently by a guy named Tim Ferriss, who does a great podcast. He was talking about how he's 30 years old, had never learned how to swim, and this guy does all these kind of things. He does all these. He's a very popular podcaster. He does all these kind of things on fitness and all that. So he never learned how to swim. He had a friend of his that made a New Year's resolution for him on January 1st of whatever year. And he said, "Listen, Tim, this is the year that you're going to learn how to swim." And you know what? He went and he conquered his fears, took swimming lessons. Within 2 weeks, he was part of an Ironman where he swam 2.4 miles. So this guy is a very achiever. But within 2 weeks, where he's scared to put his face in the water, he was actually swimming as part of an Ironman.
In 2 weeks, he learns to swim and does 2.5 miles in an Ironman.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
What?
In addition to the 112-mile bike and the 24-mile run. Yeah. So crazy.
But I just can't. That's incredible. So can't swim now. No, they more than faced his fears. That's just incredible.
Wow,
people. Yeah, I think that's a great example of what people, are capable of. And I know sometimes that when dealing with fear, and I can speak through personal experience here. I don't think anybody in the room is immune to anything like this, but fear can really, and I think is really designed by the enemy to really trap us.
You can
and
paralyze.
To really and to paralyze us.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what where I'm going with this. Is it can be debilitating in our design to live and to live free, and to be, who God has intended us to be, and and I think that's living life to the fullest. A cup that overflows. I think that's in any